This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.
All right, welcome back to the Goals.com podcast, the show where we uncover what really drives sales performance at the highest level. Today's guest has built his career on the belief that sales isn't just about closing deals, it's about creating wins on both sides of the table. With over 20 years of experience leading sales growth, Joel Cessna is the founder and principal of Cessna Sales Solutions, a fractional sales leader, advisor, and board member. Joel, are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
You spent over 20 years in sales after starting customer service roles. How did those early experiences at Dairy Queen and waiting tables shape the way you sell today?
I think at the baseline, it's really how to relate to people, being comfortable to have that conversation, starting to build rapport and trust with them is really important. And that just really carries over in life in multiple aspects, whether it's trying to sell something, communication with your child's school teacher, et cetera. But just that interaction and also, waiting tables, there's many objections. Food was too cold, didn't get what they asked for, want to speak to a manager. So dealing with those interactions as well kind of help you not become as frazzled in those conflict situations.
Sure. You've said that sales is fun, a phrase we don't often hear. What makes sales fun for you, and how can sales leaders pass that mindset down to their teams?
It's really about a mindset. And I always try to look at sales as far, kind of like a game. Not a game and where you're always trying to win, but, you know, I try to look at it as, hey, we're in the fourth quarter, we're down by a point. Need to hit my quota. What can I do to get past that and make sure we win the game? I've also heard sales kind of described as a puzzle, right? So you're figuring out what the client needs. You're trying to match that with your organizational goals and profitability. If you could look at it like a game of Jenga, if they don't come together, all those puzzle pieces crumble. So, having a clear path and understanding and looking at it from both sides is really important.
You're a believer in making sales a win-win. How do you coach reps to balance company goals with truly making the customer successful?
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, it's really difficult, right? Because you need to do what's right for the company. We need to be profitable. We need to keep the doors open. But at the same time, it's making that customer feel heard, and making sure that they are also getting results from the service that you're providing. If one is too lopsided, it's not going to be a sustainable relationship, and you're probably not going to be able to retain that client for a longer period of time. So it's really, again, diving into understanding what they need and does your solution help provide that? If it doesn't, be honest with them and maybe make a recommendation at someone who does have that, because that goes a long way as well as building that relationship and trust.
I like that. When you walk into an organization, what's the first thing you look at to understand whether the sales process is healthy or needs a complete reset?
Really, there's three areas that I primarily look at. The first and foremost is, do they have a process in place? With many founder-led organizations that I work with, there is no process at all. And it's all up in the founder's head, which is completely normal, completely understandable. But making sure that the sales process is in place is really important to set everyone up for success. The second thing is looking at their pipeline health and trends, looking at how long does it take to go from stage 1 to stage 2, and is there a common thread on a certain stage that takes a longer period of time to move to the next, and what's that bottleneck? The third thing I like to do is actually speak to the individual sales reps and just get an understanding from them on what is working. Are they all in unison with each other? And are they in the right role? Like there have been cases where they really probably weren't the best fit for that sales role in that organization. So having those conversations really gives you a good picture from the boots on the ground people as well.
Sure. Sales managers often struggle with managing up as well as managing their teams. What advice do you give managers who feel stuck in the middle?
So I look at it like share what you can share and challenge what makes sense to challenge. So from a sharing aspect, obviously you can't share everything with your team, right? I remember going through an acquisition with a previous company and I knew it was coming down. I knew numbers, but you can't really share that with the team. Um, Being able to find something that you can share with the team so it gives them a better understanding of, okay, this is why this directive is happening. They're not just pushing on us to push on us. So being as transparent as you can without obviously violating any company rules or anything. And then managing up, challenge what makes sense to challenge. And that's not challenge everything that your leader is telling you to do, but they may not look at a specific situation the way you do. So they might be missing out on a piece. So just bringing that to their attention, again, having a conversation, not being, too pushy on them, but more consultative and getting them to see the entire picture because sometimes those decisions can be reversed.
Sure. You've worked with founders who are making their first sales hire. What are the biggest mistakes you see founders make in that transition, and how can they set their new hire up for success?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but the biggest issue is not having a process in place. Again, completely normal. It's the last thing that they're probably going to be thinking about. Everything is in their head. They just kind of expect it like, hey, you're going to sit on a few demos with me. You're going to absorb it all, read these different papers that we did, look at our website, et cetera, and go. Making sure that a clear-cut process is laid out. I always really push for a formalized training process as well, because that really gives the new sales hire a background of your story, like why you've been successful, why we are here today, because a founder sells strictly through passion. Like it's their passion project. This is what they're really going after. Sales needs to understand where that comes from. And then I would say the last thing is providing the sales team with tools. So whether that's CRM definitely should be in place, but other tools like Zoom Info, researching tools, and making sure that they have case studies available to provide for prospecting as well.
Yeah, metrics can overwhelm sales leaders. What are the metrics that matter in your opinion, and which ones are distractions?
So it's super easy, and I've been very guilty of this in getting caught up in activity metrics. Activity metrics are great because you can then catch things a little bit earlier from a sales perspective. Like if someone's not performing well from an activity perspective, is that going to translate to lower performance next quarter? So trying to identify trends like that, activities are important. But at the end of the day, I look at, are people selling? Are they closing deals? And, if I have a rep that's closing $5 million of new business and their outreach numbers are lower than someone that's closing $1 million in business, I'm not really going to care because they're bringing in that revenue. But again, those metrics, those activity metrics really then are things that you're going to look at for maybe like a coaching perspective, just to make sure everything is covered.
Sure. Territory planning and forecasting can feel overwhelming for reps. What's one practical system you've seen reps use to make it less painful and more effective?
I try to keep territory planning really simple. So I always use Google Sheets because I didn't want them to spend a ton of time going through their territory plan, but really kind of having the basics down. Like, let's do a SWOT analysis of your current territory and your clients. What opportunities and threats do we have from that retention business? But then also looking at what key prospects are we going to target this quarter How are we going to do that? And then I really would use territory planning as kind of like a pulse check. Like, do they have everything they need to be successful? Each rep is going to be different. If you try to handle every single salesperson the same, it's going to fail. So making sure that each individual rep is getting the attention and the tools that they need to be successful is really important as part of that process.
You work with reps on prospecting plans. What's one underrated prospecting tactic you think more reps should be using in 2025?
I've seen a variety of different tactics being utilized. I mean, obviously, if you're doing email, which email should be part of your outreach, it's very likely getting lost because there's so many people that are hitting people up through email. I get hit up, I don't know, 50 to 100 times a day with different email outreach. LinkedIn can have its success. Still, I think some people look at it as creepy and they don't want to be sold to on LinkedIn. They want to make connections, but they don't want a sales pitch. So I actually look at it now like the phone call is kind of coming back, where not as many people are picking up that phone and dialing. But I think at the end of the day, it's really a combination of all those tactics. And most importantly, do your research ahead of time. So you are reaching out to them, talking about something that's relevant, and they know that you did some sort of research on them within that messaging.
Sales is obviously a grind. What's your best advice for reps who are struggling to stay motivated week after week?
So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the territory planning, where each rep is a little bit different. Like I know I had one sales rep that was very motivated by money and he made a lot of money. And so anytime that he was feeling down, frustrated, I just would say, tape your paycheck up by your computer, because looking at that, would motivate him to keep going, to kind of push through the grind. But not everyone is motivated by money. So it's finding what that motivating factor is. But looking at it holistically, sales is always going to be a series of highs and lows, right?
Mhm.
So, I used to coach youth hockey and we would always tell the players, like, don't get too high, don't get too low, like try to stay even keel. And the same goes true in sales. It's important to celebrate the wins. I've actually probably been guilty about not celebrating them enough. But, when you do hit those lows, making sure that you're not going in a funk too long. If you're feeling that pressure, take a walk, go to the gym, whatever it does to really help kind of re-energize you and then kind of get back at it.
I like that. You've said we all sell, even in everyday life. How can recognizing that make someone a better sales rep or leader?
Really, it's about pressure and kind of how you want to look at it. So, I look at not as much now because my kids are a little bit older, but, selling them to eat their vegetables. You kind of came up with the benefits of why they should eat their carrots or their green beans, etc. Or I've been trying to put a man cave together. So wanting to have that video game in my basement and, you know, selling that to my wife on, hey, the kids can get at this and hey, this will be a great place to hang out and everything. So sales really should kind of be looked at from the same way. It all starts with a conversation. Look at the benefits, look at the pain points, kind of lay it out, and handle those objections kind of as they come up.
There's often tension between sales and marketing. Having worn both hats, how do you build a culture of alignment between the two?
So the easy answer is communication. But the one thing that I've learned is so often they're butting heads because they don't realize what they are being tasked with from leadership. So marketing, for example, could be handed down a directive of, hey, we need this new rebrand or we need this new website up in a month. So they're panicking and freaking out. Meanwhile, sales has to grow sales by 30% this quarter. So starting with the conversation, just so they can understand where they're coming from, is important. And then letting each other know what they need. So sales will say, hey, I need case studies every day of the week, right? But trying to be more specific about what you want that case study to say. Is there a specific niche that you're selling to that you want that case study for? And then likewise on the marketing side, you don't want just a bunch of junk coming over to you. So that's fine when you send things over. Please let me know when you need it by, what sort of format you need it in. So then it's really a good professional relationship back and forth, and everyone's successful from that.
With 20 plus years of experience, you've seen sales evolve dramatically. What's the biggest change you've noticed? And conversely, what hasn't changed at all?
That's a funny question because literally on Friday, I was driving down the freeway, and in the car next to me, I noticed they had a Garmin GPS up on their dashboard. So it brought me back to, 20 years ago when I was managing a territory and driving around the Midwest and part of Canada. When I started, I would print off MapQuest sheets for everywhere that I was going to go. And then the GPS came in, and I remember one of my sales colleagues was the first one to have it, and he was saying how great it is. And I was kind of pessimistic against it, but once I bought a Garmin, it was a game changer, and now it's in nearly everyone's vehicles, or it's on your smartphone. So I think just driving, like from a territory perspective, it's super simple, or you have the Uber app, right? As far as what hasn't changed, in sales, you still need to put in the work. You do have more resources at your disposal, but you still need to prospect, you still need to pitch, and you still need to close. So I think it's just how you do that's a little bit different, but the base is still the same.
Looking back, what's one failure in your career that ended up teaching you the most about sales and leadership?
I would say setting expectations, or making sure that you're on the same page with your leader, your manager. I had a situation where I thought I was just crushing it. New logos, the revenue that was coming in was more than double what my income was. So I thought I was doing a great job. Turns out they still needed more. So I think by setting those expectations up front is really important. And then just really kind of level setting, right? Like a simple one that just recently came up was quota versus goal. Like I look at those as two different metrics. Like a quota is something that you have to hit in order for us to maintain profitability. But I'm going to give you goals as a salesperson to exceed that quota. And it's probably a goal and then a stretch goal, and then I'm going to incentivize you accordingly. So again, just kind of setting those expectations, making sure you're on the same page with your leader is really important to drive that success.
If you had to give just one piece of advice to an ambitious rep who wants to become a VP of sales one day, what would it be?
One of my former sales leaders, I'll never forget, he always said when he walks into the room to do a pitch, he wants to be the smartest person in that room in regards to the product, in regards to the industry. So, again, there's a lot of resources out there. So if you're selling into, like, my industry that I've been the last 15 years has been health systems, right? So being very knowledgeable as far as what their challenges are, go to conferences, sit in sessions, so then you can really pick up a lot of their pain points and then what people are doing to have success. So then, right now, a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, have you heard anyone having this challenge and what have they done to overcome it? So being that trusted advisor then will just, again, build confidence. You'll be looked at differently, and then you're going to kind of raise in the ranks, so to speak, internally, but also within the industry too, if you're looking to go to different organizations.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Goals.com podcast. Huge thanks to Joel Cessna for sharing his wisdom on building sales processes, empowering teams, and making sales fun again. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the show and share it with a sales pro who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep pushing, keep learning, and keep hitting those sales goals. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
This episode is brought to you by Goals.com, the sales performance platform built to help teams stay focused, motivated, and on track. While most CRMs just track data, Goals.com drives real results. It's simple, affordable, and designed to help your sales team hit targets faster, without the headache of complex setup or costly consultants. Whether you're using a CRM or not, Goals.com works seamlessly to elevate your performance. Book a fun, fast demo today at Goals.com.